You know what they say in Movie Emporium land? No review of a show is ever finished. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the HBO original series, Welcome to Derry. This will follow season 1 finale conclusion, which is episode 8. It's called Winter Fire. It is directed by, once again, Andy Muschietti. So we finally come to the conclusion of Welcome to Derry Chapter 1. Of course, this has been a very uneven season, but it has ended strong, and this episode was pretty incredible. Even if the visual effects work was on the level of Game of Thrones and not perfect and not actually that great, the kind of what this episode is doing, what it's trying to set up for the next 2 seasons is a fascinating one. Whether you like time dilation and time paradoxes remains to be seen based on what Margie is told by, of course, Pennywise. But this episode has to conclude the army plotline, the Dick Halloran plotline, the plotline of the children, the plotline of how they stop Pennywise from basically taking over Derry and the world by the mist. I thought that was, I'm assuming that's in reference to the mist itself. I don't entirely know. But this episode has a lot. It has to do a lot. It's not perfect, but it is still a pretty fun, entertaining, very graphic episode that has kind of turned the season around more than I was expecting, because I was not a big fan of the middle of this series, or at least this chapter. But as we know, next season is going to go back to 1935, and then the next season after that, as long as they keep continuing, is going to go back to 1908. So with this episode, Pennywise has gone on a quest to take down the entire world by crossing the log, by crossing the middle of the ice river to basically garner ultimate power, because there is no longer a, that object, that, thing that is on the ground that's protecting the world from this entity known as it. So what does he do? He steals all the children by using the deadlights. And it's a really funny scene, real fun scene. It is a reminiscence of Carrie a little bit. The principal is killed in very horrifying fashion by Pennywise sticking his fingers into the eye sockets, ripping the head off, and then he uses the deadlights to take all the children. And I really like that scene. It's right before the opening credits. It really gets a good sense of how horrifying this whole nature of Pennywise the clown is, the whole nature of the entity, and the nature of what it's like when you go up against a force that is unpredictable and dangerous, and how do you kind of plan for that? Well, as we know, the children are taken, and then of course Margie and Ronnie and of course Lily are going to have to stop them, because they have, of course, the device, the object, and they have a fun scene where they drive in a milk truck. At least Margie drives in a milk truck, and there's a lot of jokes about her missing an eye, about the fact that they crash into a pothole, but it's not her eye, but it's the pothole. And it's just a fun scene. It's a good scene. It's an entertaining scene. It's not anything special or anything like that. But as we know, and as we learn from the military, this is military's fault, so they are responsible for it, but they know where Pennywise the clown is at. And of course, Leroy Hamlin and Dick Halloran are going to use Dick Halloran's powers to stop Pennywise from taking the children past the log. They're going to use Rose and, of course, Tanlin. And basically it's a race against time to stop Pennywise the clown from basically taking over the world in a lot of aspects. Is that kind of story. And I really like the fact that, we get a lot of stuff with Bill Skarsgård. He has a lot of great moments in this episode. I think with the fact that he has his his cart, and he has the children floating behind him with the powers of the deadlights on them. And that's a really cool sequence. Once again, the fog has come in, the snow has come in, everything is going for Pennywise. I love the fact that he's just red from like here down, which is really cool. And I'm assuming he's going to kill all the children. I like the fact that the way the car is being controlled is by a hand, like somebody's like a decapitated hand. But he has like a tuba or whatever, French horn or whatever it is, and he's like propelling the cart forward. And it's a really cool scene. And a lot of the stuff is really cool. Once again, the visual effects work that we see is very much in line with Game of Thrones. It's very expensive looking, but I don't think it's very well structured when it comes to like its visual quality. I think it looks very cheap, and you could tell they're on a green screen. It very much is a TV budgeted, high budgeted type of thing, I guess you could say. Maybe it's the way HBO shows are filmed and stuff like that, but I never really was on board with like the quality of the picture or quality of the visual effects work. And it's even the same with like Pennywise, because when the kids ram into, or when the kids and the pendulum or whatever that thing is meet up with Pennywise, and there's that really cool scene where he's like, running around them and like, scaring them, and he like takes Margie, which we'll talk about in a second. And then you have the crew of Leroy and Dick Halloran and Taylour and stuff like that in the van, and they all are approached by the military. There's a lot of moving pieces, of course. Tanya, I keep mispronouncing his name. He is shot and killed, which is unfortunate. And then, of course, Leroy I thought was going to be killed. He's actually shot in the leg. But the military is they're pretty much a lost cause at this point. I don't know where they play into, like I said, the original It series or the It books, but they're not in there, to be fairly honest. I think that, like I said, the Indian tribe is in there. But basically, Marge is taken by Pennywise, and as people have theorized, Pennywise can see through time. He can time manipulate his world view, so he knows Maggie or Margie is going to have a kid. The kid, of course, is Richie Tozer, the Finn Wolfhard character, which is pretty predictable if you think about it. Because her character's named Maggie, and we see like the wanted sign, or not the wanted sign, but the missing sign of course Finn Wolfhard's character. So that revelation is now kind of is now revealed that of course he is the son of this Margie character. Of course, as we see the totem or whatever is like the ring from Lord of the Rings. Every time somebody holds it, it actually manipulates their mind, makes them really like very dangerous and very like upset and angry. The Lily gets upset and angry at, of course, Ronnie. They have to like hold on to each other to get this through the situation. It's like taking the device to this tree, but it's also like taking the ring to Mount Doom and stuff like that. We of course have Dick Halloran stopping of course Pennywise before he eats of course Margie. And also we see like this past view of him where we see the old carnival barker who keeps calling Pennywise Bob Gray. And of course Pennywise is like, no, I am more. I'm an evil entity. It's really cool the fact of how they expand upon the entity itself, because it is a creature. It is a eater of worlds, as it says. You can very much put it in line with the Men in Black character that Vincent D'Onofrio plays. It has that stylings of just like, this creature has these abilities that are in the Dark Tower universe in a lot of respects. But I really like how when the military basically hits Dick Halloran, the clown, Pennywise the clown, the entity basically is able to uncover Dick Halloran from the spell that Pennywise is under, which allows once again Pennywise to go after the James Remar character. He reveals himself to, of course, the entity or the face that he saw when he was a young kid. And of course, James Remar is eaten alive by Pennywise the clown. And it's a beautiful ending for James Remar, who was just a misguided fool of an individual who thought about the military over the fact of his life. And the rest of the military is killed in the process, but by, of course, the people, by Dick Halloran and stuff like that. And then, of course, it's a race against time. Now that Pennywise knows what's happening, the kids are trying to take the totem, put it in the tree. He's running towards the tree. And, of course, Dick Halloran sees the Deus Ex Machina with Rich coming towards them to help them put the totem in. And it's like, oh, here's the, once again, Deus Ex Machina moment where Rich, the young kid, is there to help them. And it's a sweet moment. They realize that there's something more helping them. But it takes Leroy, it takes Dick, it takes Rose, it takes all these characters to basically stop Pennywise from moving. And it's a really cool scene where Pennywise basically turns into a dragon. He starts going after him, and they're able to implant the thing into the tree. And to watch kind of this melting of Pennywise, like in a almost like art paint style look, as he starts kind of forming back, and then he kind of dissipates into back into his lair. It's a really cool shot. It's a really cool scene. Yes, the visual work is a little suspect, but I love the idea of just what Pennywise looks like and how he is formed and what it takes to have this character kind of be turned away, because we know he's going to come back. I mean, 1988 is going to happen. It has to happen because the original book has to occur. Well, once again, Tanyan is killed. James Remar's character is killed. Pennywise is stopped for the time being. He's going to come back. The real reason Dick Halloran is in here is because he needs to keep his shining ability under control. We see Richie at the funeral, who's touching the shoulders of his parents. We see him kind of dealing, like I said, once again, the powder that Rose gives Rose gives him, helps him kind of deal with this and help it keep it at bay, because he's seen all his characters. He's trying to commit suicide. And once again, I don't really like the fact that Dick Halloran's in this, but I get it. It's a lot better than the military stuff because it allows Rich's parents to have some kind of closure. It allows Dick to eventually go off. Once again, we need a Dick Halloran TV show from the point of when he leaves Derry to the point of when he goes to the Overlook. And I would love to see that story play out. And once again, everything goes back to normal. Pennywise is hidden. The town folk have forgotten. I'm assuming the kids will have forgotten because they don't really remember anything in the book. And it basically leads to Margie and Lily having this talk where they question. Margie goes, I think this entity can see through different moments of time, so it could go back and kill your mother. There was a whole big explanation of some, I think it was about time or whatever, but it was with Dudley Moore. It's very offbeat, kind of hard to find. But it talks about if you could go back and kill your parents, would it affect the future and stuff like that? And that's what it feels like they're aiming for, where we're going to go back and Pennywise is going to manipulate the 1930s, is going to manipulate the 1900s. And we'll see how that plays out. Once again, I don't want them to do that. I just want a cool story, to be fairly honest, to have each play out. It gets stopped, Pennywise gets stopped. But I have a feeling they're going to mess with the time issue, with the time situation of the story. So once again, when it goes back to 1908, we're going to learn about the fire that happened and the massacre. And in the 1930s, we're going to learn a little bit more about how Pennywise, and I'm assuming we're going to learn about the kid, or I guess, I don't know. I think they should go back to 1908 in the second season, and then the 1800s and the season before that, to show kind of how it became the entity that it did. But it basically ponders what is going to happen. And it's, once again, Leroy and Charlotte and Will are going to leave. Then they decide to stay. And of course, the idea of, Leroy and Will becoming, sheep, herders or whatever, in that situation that happened in the book. The fact that they don't leave, but Ronnie and, of course, her father leave. So my theory that they were going to have a couple of Mike is not true, but they have their first kiss. Of course, Margie is, of course, the mother of Richie. Lily, I guess I don't want to say that she's Beverly's mother, but it feels awfully like she may be Beverly's mother, but I don't entirely know, to be fairly honest, because what ends up happening at the end of the story is we see Madeleine Stowe's character in the hospital, and she's being taken care of, and then of course she hears her song, which calms her down, and then we shoot to 1988 and we see her as an old woman, and she's painting, and then she hears some crying going on and walks down the hallway, and she sees and hears Miss Marsh basically has hung herself. Now, I'm not saying that Lily is Miss Marsh. I'm just saying it's awfully convenient that Lily doesn't really have a payoff at the end of this series. So if she is Miss Marsh, and she committed suicide because she couldn't handle it anymore, or she lost her mind and Pennywise did whatever he did, it's really interesting. And of course, we see Beverly Marsh, and Sophia Lillis looks quite old for a character from 1988 playing Beverly Marsh, whose mother dies before the story actually happens. So that's weird to me, fairly honest. I mean, they could have just not shown Sophia Lillis. They could just, they showed the back of her, but you have to have that reference. You have to have that payoff to how we get to 1988. But yeah, it ends there. It ends with her character going, in Derry, no one's ever truly dead, which leads into, of course, Pennywise the Clown never being truly dead until the very end of the It book itself. So yeah, that's like I said, there's a lot going on there. But that's pretty much the gist of the last episode of season, chapter 1, as it says at the end of the episode. It's a really good episode, to be fairly honest. I was pretty truly surprised. I was not expecting to be that good, but it ended pretty well. The problem is you still have the book that Stephen King wrote. You still have to deal with that. So it really kind of just makes the ending of this kind of lesser than, I guess you could say. It makes it feel a little bit down. We know what happens, so I guess you kind of have to go with it. You kind of have to watch it like season 3, 2, 1, and then the movies by Andy Muschietti. But I do think the lore, I think the use of Bill Skarsgård in this episode, the fact that we get to see Pennywise a lot in his clown form, I think it does pay off well and nicely. And it's more than we ever got to see from him throughout the books, the book itself. So it was really cool to see what they did with him. But overall, it just, I don't know. It's just it's such a weird story to do. It's like when they did The Hobbit, or when Tolkien wrote The Hobbit and then wrote Lord of the Rings, and then they did Lord of the Rings first and then went to The Hobbit. You know how the story's going to pay off. Of course, Bilbo is going to get the ring. Eventually he's going to give it to Frodo, and it's that kind of thing. So you kind of have to just watch it in reverse. It's kind of like going to the prequels and watching, Darth Vader become Darth Vader, or Anakin become Darth Vader. And yeah, I mean, that's my quibble and quibbles. The military stuff doesn't really pay off very well. Like I said, James Remar is killed. I don't think his storyline pays off very well. Of course, they're going to have his character as a kid in the second season, I'm sure. And they're going to have Rose as a kid, and they're going to have the whole Indian tribe to play in there. But yeah, for the most part, it was a pretty successful. I mean, if we didn't have the Stephen King story, it would be a pretty successful season, to be fairly honest. And I still think it's pretty successful. I just think it's really weird. That's just how I roll. So overall, with the conclude the review, it's good. It really is. The episode's great for what it's worth. It has great moments, great violence, and great moments with Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. So that's all we need. But for my final score of the episode, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's not as good as the last episode, but I think it works pretty well. For the season, if I average it out, which I think is like a 7 out of 10, because there are more good episodes than are bad, but a 7 out of 10 is kind of where I roll with the season. But I think it definitely works near the end compared to the beginning. So there you go. Anyways, that is the first chapter or the first season of course, Welcome to Derry. I appreciate you watching. Yeah, in the comments below, what did you think of the last episode of the season? What did you think of the whole season in general? If you liked it, I get it. It was great stuff in there, but like I said, there were some problems. But let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, all that good stuff. But with that said, thank you so much for taking this journey for at least the first season. We'll see you in the second season and probably 8 years from now. But with that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, as always. But with that said, peace out.